Baby boomers. The Pew Research Center estimates there are about 74 million people in that generation, and the majority of boomers are homeowners. There's research that says over the next 20 years, their homes will flood the market, but no one will buy them. What's behind that thinking? Kate Iles, owner of Maple and Main Realty, and Professor John Rogers of American International College weighed in.
Well, I think at that time, 40 years ago, this was the dream to own a home. I think there's been a little shift over the years. What I see just, out and about with clients is that millennials are a little more hesitant to buy. For one thing, even if they want to buy, it's a little more challenging. Financing is much more difficult than it used to be. I also think when the market declined, millennials saw that then you were really stuck where you are. So buying really tied them into an area. So if they need to change jobs or whatever, they were a little locked in.
So they're reluctant to go ahead and make that investment.
I've seen that a little bit, yeah.
And so there's been a lot of reporting lately about baby boomers and this flood that they're going to cause in the market because they're going to sell their homes. But what's the thinking behind that?
Well, the baby boomer generation obviously drove a lot of things, including the housing market. So there is a preoccupation on the, if you like, the demand side of the equation. On the other hand, we sometimes forget the millennial generation is a baby boom. It's got as many people in it as, or maybe actually a little bit more than the baby boom, and it's a stressed generation because of the financial crisis, because of student loans, because of the turbulence that we've had in the job market. But eventually, those people are going to become situated, and that's one of the things that people do. It's part of the American dream. I don't think it's going to go away, that people want to eventually become homeowners, and their family formation kicks in. It's a little bit later than earlier generations, but it's going to happen. So I think you do have something picking up the slack on the demand side. It's a little bit slower than it was with the baby boom, but I think it's there for the future. So I think that'll balance that factor off.
To me, there's also some conflicting reporting here, right? Because we're hearing that baby boomers are going to put their house on the market. There's going to be all this inventory, all these homes available to buy. But is the inventory there right now, Kate?
We're not seeing that. In fact, in the Pioneer Valley, sales have been a little down, but median price is up. And that's because we can't sell what we don't have. There's not a lot of places for seniors to go. Downsizing. We find that seniors want to, if they downsize, they still want a sophisticated home. They don't want to go, backwards, like to apartments or things like that.
They don't want to go from 2,000 square feet to 600 in an acute condo.
Right, exactly. So the market's a little bit stuck in that way. The other thing we see a lot of that might be squeezing millennials out a little is there's a lot of cash out there now. So it's hard to compete in the market if you have to get financing. Makes it much more difficult.
And if a baby boomer is putting their house on the market, do we have any sense of average price that they're hoping to get? I mean, which might not be affordable for a millennial.
That could be true too. Yep.
Because if I've invested, if I've put a 40-year investment into something, you're probably going to want to get $300,000 or so out of that investment. Is a millennial in the position to spend that kind of money on a house?
That's true. On the other hand, I would say the millennials have an advantage in the sense that, first of all, you do have a lot more two-income couples. I mean, I think that's the wave of the future, that people are going to have more income simply because of that. So that's going to help.
It was on one income, most likely, the male of the household.
Primarily, there might have been a secondary income, but these are two primary wage earners for the most part. I think the financial markets, too, have evolved a lot. There's a lot more creativity in mortgages, and even though we're looking at interest rates going up, they're not probably going to go up that much. They've been at historic lows, and they're edging up, but the 10-year Treasury bill is still slightly under 3%, and nobody's predicting it's going to go way higher than that. So you're looking at a fairly favorable financial situation, which means there's cash available, so it's competitive to buy a house, but on the other hand, they're pretty good means for financing it.
Yeah, the days of 20% down, maybe for a commercial investment, but not necessarily for someone who wants to get into a residential home, right?
Right, and we've seen also For seniors that have been in homes maybe 40 years, we're seeing a lot of deferred maintenance, and that often can put off a new buyer, a younger buyer that, is a little worried about the finances in the beginning. That's pretty common, and I think what added to that is the recession, is right when homes started to need some things, people weren't in the position to do it.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, the difference between, maybe a millennial who wants to live in sort of this walkable neighborhood, maybe closer to a downtown. Baby boomers, it was very fashionable to live in the suburbs. So you also have that big difference, right?
Yes, but I've seen that changing very much. Even seniors, when we see them downsizing, they want to be in town. They want to be able to walk to their coffee, to their newspaper, not be dependent on someone for a ride everywhere at some point.
Mm-hmm. And so when we look at this trend over years, I was doing some research and I found a report from Harvard in 1988, and it looked at this same issue, not baby boomers and millennials per se, but baby boomers and the impact on the housing market. And at that time in 1988, it predicted something similar, that baby boomers are going to, because in the 1970s they were buying houses, they drove up the price, that they were going to have a big impact on houses yet again. And that report said, quote, "The baby bust generation is now entering its house buying years. Housing demand will grow more slowly in the 1990s than in any time in the past 40 years. If the historical relation between housing demand and housing prices continues into the future, real housing prices will fall substantially over the next 2 decades." Is that what we saw?
It just shows how difficult it is to predict the future, particularly long-term trends like housing prices and demography. And we certainly did not see that. Housing prices continued to go up right up until the recession, and now they're coming back after the recession. And the 2008 recession was a major financial crisis. It just did a real job on the housing market and on the millennial generation in terms of their ability to get started in the workforce. So I think if you look at financial crises that have happened in other countries, in Sweden, other places, it's about a 10-year period that you need to recover from those, and that's what we're seeing now. The economy is booming, and people have money, and the interest rates are still pretty favorable. So it's on the demand side, I think the demand is there for the foreseeable future. On the supply side, I agree that the inventories, everything you hear, are tight, and I don't see that changing a huge amount in the future because of building costs, because of regulations, zoning. And I think there were some studies done of housing construction over the last 2 years, and they found that if you back out what was done to recover from the hurricanes and other natural disasters, there really wasn't any significant increase in inventory. They rebuilt things that had been destroyed, but they hadn't really added that much to inventory.
Kate, what advice do you give people who are looking either right now to sell, maybe a baby boomer, or a millennial who wants to get into the market?
Well, I mean, in terms of selling, getting your house really prepared for sale. We always used to say that, location, location, location. That is still true, but we are seeing condition is a huge factor, huge. It's kind of the shiny penny that sells. So that's really important. I think millennials, for a lot of reasons, I mean, one thing, the student loans, they don't have the deep pockets that boomers had back in the day. So they need a house that's, ready to go almost. And so that can hold people back. So I think that's, if sellers can, think about a year or so before they're going to put their house on the market and try to prepare it, call us in. We can give them some tips on what to do, what not to do, because it's not wise to spend money in crazy ways, but just little things can go a long way.